All right, ladies and gentlemen, energy vampires. We're going to talk about the number one topic in the world, that is sex. Sales. Sorry, sales. That's right. Mine was somewhere else.
I definitely, I think it's the most universal tool in the world. I mean, think about like prehistoric times. You want to talk about like biblical. It doesn't matter. Sales has always been around. If you know how to do sales, you never go broke. I always talk about like if everything collapsed, I will buy something for $5 and sell it for $10. Mm-hmm. I think about a story that I went through as a young entrepreneur. Well, with Cutco, it was like, hey, if you do X amount, you get a BMW. So what they did is they paid you $500 a month for the BMW, but you would have to like put the deposit down, the whole 9 yards. So I go to this BMW shop. Okay, so I go to this BMW shop and I go to it and there's this person, and this person doesn't talk to me for like 10 minutes. Right? Mm-hmm. Now, granted, I'm dressed in like khaki shorts and like a regular shirt. I look like kind of like a frat boy. I don't look like I'm an entrepreneur. And he asked me, he's like, hey, do you need anything? And I was like, well, I'm looking for a BMW. And he goes, well, there's some 3 Series and used ones in the back. And I don't know if you've ever been judged before, but step number 1, never judge your customer. I felt so ashamed of somebody judging me. It was so awful. It was the worst experience ever. So I was fucking committed, right, to buying this BMW. So what I do is I go right down the road on Veterans Highway and I go to Peak BMW. And within 5 fucking seconds, somebody comes up to me and goes, hey Dave, do you need a BMW? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, cool, let me take you to the showroom. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Right? So he takes me to the showroom, and this is BMW fucking 8 Series. I thought it was only like up to like a 7 Series, right? And this thing had like Lamborghini doors, like pretty much a fucking MacBook in the BMW. It was the most badass. It was hooked up to a wall because it didn't run on gas, right? And he's like selling the shit out of it to me. He's like, look, there's only like 2 like it in America. I'm like, I don't know about all that. And he's like selling it to me. And then once he builds up all the value, he says, this is the price. Do you want to what? Buy. Now, one thing I need you to understand is the price is constant, and the only way you're ever going to make a sale is if the value outweighs the what? Price. Right. Now, in some situations, somebody really couldn't afford that, like myself. I was like, dude, that is a really, really good deal, but unfortunately, the way my checking and savings is set up, right, like, I'm not going to be able to do that. Right. Now, some people, when they drop down, their body language, you can really tell. Right? And, your shoulders are dropping. You'll be like, shit, like, I just spent all that time trying to sell this home, sell this car. But he looked at me and said, you know what? No problem. The next car is just for you. And he brought me to this next car, and it was a 5 Series. But when you drop down, what did he have to do? He had to rebuild the whole value. This is the 5 Series. This is what it comes with. This is the miles per gallon. This is the price. Do you want to what? Buy. It's called AFTO, ask for the order. Anytime you drop down, you always ask for the what? Order, right? And it's always important in sales that you always start from the top and then you drop down accordingly. And you never skip a step because then you're going to judge your customer. So although it was a little bit more in my budget at the time, I was like, dude, that's a really, really good deal, right? But is there like anything else? Now, what he didn't know at that time is I already did my research. I had this beautiful 328 SI that I already wanted to buy, and I was like, this is my baby, right? I already had that bitch printed out. I wanted to get it. He had no idea, so he brings me to the 328 SI, right? And he starts building up all the value, and in my head, I'm like, I already know what all this stuff comes with. But he's building up all his value, he's going over everything with me, and at the end he goes, this is the price, do you want to what? Buy. Now, I'm in sales. So what's interesting at that time is I wanted to kind of mess with him. I said, I gave him every salesman's worst dream. I said, I'll think about it. He goes, now, if they say, I'll think about it, is it a price objection? Or is it like too many, is it just the car? It's really a price objection, right? When, for example, when let's say your mom and your dad go to let's say your mom goes to the grocery store, she doesn't call your dad and say, hey, can I buy broccoli today? Right? It's just too, whatever it is, she just swipes her card. It's always a price thing. It's like when you're at the mall, when you say, hey, I need to think about it, I'll come back. It never happens. So I hit him with the, I need to think about it. He goes, what does all salespeople do? He goes, you know what? I'm going to call my manager. Right? So then he offers me another deal, and it was really interesting. So I go up to him and I was like, hey, that's a really, really good deal, but I heard they have the same deals in Baton Rouge going on. And I'm walking off. I'm just walking off, right? I'm walking off. And it's like slow motion in the movie, and he's like, wait! And I'm like, what you got? He goes, if you buy this car today, I'll give you free oil changes for the first 10 years of your life. And I was like, sign up the paper. Let's buy it. And I bought the BMW and I paid for it in full, so that person messed up in the beginning. Okay?
Right.
But there's a few different points in the story that really involve sales. Number one, never judge your customers. Number two, always start from the top, go to the bottom.
Right.
As you're dropping down, it's important to always rebuild the value. And then most importantly, AFTO. You have to ask for the order on several occasions. There is a poll taken, I'm not sure if you really are aware of this, but on average, the average person says no 5 times before they say a yes.
Yeah.
Now, why? Because as a kid, you are taught to say the word no. Think about it. You see the white van. What are you supposed to say? No, right? You do X, Y, Z. You're going to say what? No. So you're always, it's a lot easier to say the word no.
Correct.
Right? But when the value, I don't care what you're selling in life. It does not matter. If the value outweighs the price, it's always a sale.
I agree.
And that's my story.
I 100% agree with that.
That was a great story. I was just like drowned into it.
I feel like I was there, man. I feel like I was
Right,
there the whole
exactly.
time
Me
walking
too.
with him.
I'm like, oh, who is this guy? We need to hire this motherfucker, whoever he is.
Yeah, walking this, oh yeah, I'm marvelous. But like I 100% agree with you. Like nowadays, anytime somebody sees a prices scare people.
You never show the price before the value is built.
You never show the price.
Yeah.
You always build the value, whether that price is monetary or whether it's something that's non-monetary. Never show the price.
And you could break that, Brandon, with a joke. Like, you know, people used to ask me all the time, well, what's the price of this? And I'll smile, laugh, because you always mess with people's patterns when you smile.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be like, Miss Jones, don't be the person that ruins the movie at the end.
Real.
I'll do that instead. And they're like, oh, okay. Right.
Right. It's a deflection. You're
Right.
deflecting. You know, don't think about the price. You know, let me give you something else to think about. This is one thing I love about sales. I always bring sales down to women, and I always bring women to seduction because that's how you get women, and that's how you make sales. It's about seducing whoever you're with. Now, it doesn't have to be a woman. It could be a man. I seduce men. You know, it's just I do whatever I have to do to make a sale. I will seduce whatever. I'll seduce a panda if I want it. If I want to, you know. That's how I think about all life. I think life is a game of seduction. So your boss don't like you, he just needs to be seduced, you know, or she, doesn't really matter. I'm not speaking gender wise here, but seduction is everything. That's how you make your sale, you know, or that's how you really get across life. I once read this thing, it was like...
By the way, using seduction as a metaphorical term, not actual literally, so...
Yeah, they're not talking about not sexual seduction. You know, you're not trying to have sex with your client or whatever. But
all you're really doing is making that ending goal look so much more beautiful and so much more attractive.
You know, I think there's 2 types of customers. That, as a salesperson, you have to understand body language and rapport. And I had this rule when I would go into people's homes. I would never mention what I was selling until they were like, hey, aren't you here for something? There's 2 ways you sell, guys. Number one, it's either logic or emotion. I'll never forget, I was at this a trade show. And this lady came up to me and she had her Cutco knives for like 30, 40 years.
that makes a lot of sense though. Logic or emotion.
Correct, and you have to know which one it is. So this lady comes up to me and she says, and this is how you know the emotion of it. She comes up to me and she goes, I've been having my Cutco knives for 30, 40 years. And I was like, that's so badass, dude. Like, how long, like, who sold them to you? Did you get them from like a neighborhood friend or what happened? And she was like, I don't remember his name, but I remember how he made me feel. And it was, my heart sank. And that's how you get customers for life. Is going above and beyond for your customers. I would send all of my customers Band-Aids every single year, just in case they cut their hands with their knives.
Oh, that's a pretty good move, man.
And like, you know, like I was like the knife guy, right? And you brand yourself, right? A big part of sales is selling yourself. I was talking to one of my lady friends, right? She's a really good friend of mine, and I was actually on the way here. And after every single podcast, I speak with her, right? And I was like, hey, like, one of my topics is sales today. What do you think I should bring up? Like, what is some of your feedback? She goes, Dave, you know what you were the best at? And I was like, what was that? And she goes, you know, when I was selling Cutco with you, even though you hadn't sold Cutco in my generation, you sold yourself so much. And everybody knew how much of a badass you was at selling Cutco, although you never sold it in front of us. And she was like, you have to learn how to sell yourself. So, hypothetically, let's say I'm teaching somebody to go sell some knives, right? When you walk into a customer's home, it's like, hey Brandon, how's it going?
How you doing?
Yep, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. By the way, your house is beautiful. Find something to compliment. Also compliment expensive purchases. Like most women have art, right? If what happens when you start talking about women with art, they're going to start talking about how much money they spend. It creates a buying atmosphere, right? You always want to say the word today. It creates some type of urgency. Ms. Jones, do you mind if I share some of my goals with you?
Sure.
Okay, awesome. So just to kind of give you an idea, I started with
Call me Miss Jones, so I can
yeah. Yeah. So just so you know, I started with Cutco, a few months ago. And by the way, I had 0 sales experience.
The crazy thing about that though is that's his mom's original name. Yeah, Mrs. Jones.
So I had 0 sales experience, right?
Sorry, yeah.
I had 0 sales experience,
put it like that.
And I was actually working at like Target. And I was doing some retail or whatnot, and what I realized is, with me going to get a degree in law, I needed to just get me something that gave me some real world experience, right? And here I am, I'm like not the type of person that like loves to talk in front of people, but I wanted to get something that got me outside my comfort zone. So I decided to take this knife sales job. So I took this job, and I was super nervous about it. And what was cool is at least I got to meet with people that I know. Right. Now, I do want to let you know that the reason why I want to do this is because while most people my age are playing videos, going out, doing this and that, I'm making calls, I'm seeing clients because I'm so committed to my goals. So thank you so much for allowing me to be here today. It really means the world to me. And if you see something you like, here's the thing. Don't buy it just because of me. Buy it because you want it. But if you call me back after my first 10 days of my competition, I'm probably going to cry. Right? Yeah. Something simple. You need an emotion. You need a logic. You need to tie them into your goal. You need a thermometer. And every time somebody fucking buys from you, they sign it. They're a part of a team. They're a part of something special.
You tied them into your story too.
Yep.
So they almost became your friend, your family by the time the meeting or the sale was over.
And it's not about when they're going to buy, it's what they're going to buy. Like I said, I don't want to take credit for this. I had some amazing trainers. But I was on a string where I didn't make a no sale for 3 years. Every single person told me yes for 3 years. Whether some people had like a small sale, some people had a big sale, but I always made a sale. Because when I walked in, it wasn't, when they were going to buy, it was what they were going to buy.
I like that a lot. I like that. I get those feelings all the time where I just can't lose. Now, I want to jump back on seduction because I felt like I left that off a little bit. I'm just going to tell a little story here and make it really quick. All right, so Julius Caesar is in control of Egypt, right? And over in Egypt, Cleopatra is feuding with her brother Ptolemy III, I believe. Their father is dead, and they are competing for the empire. So Julius Caesar comes over because there's been grain shortages because of the infighting, and they need the grain to supply Rome. Now, Julius Caesar is a man who can get any woman, all right? And if Cleopatra wants the throne, she has to seduce him. How do you seduce someone who has everything, all right? Now, and him being a warrior, if he wanted her, he could have just taken her anyway. He was the leader of the greatest empire the world has ever known at that time. So what she does is she takes him for a ride on the Nile River, where she removes his armor and they sit down. It's very peaceful, quiet, and that's during the time where she seduces him. She removed what was already on his mind and put him into a calm state. She transformed what he was used to and put him in a place where she needed him to be in order to be seduced. Just like Dave was talking about, you need to make them come into your zone, into your battlefield. She couldn't beat him on the battlefield, but she could beat him with seduction on that raft on the Nile River, And because of that, she had Caesarion, I believe his name was, and she ruled her empire until Mark Antony, after he was assassinated and got with Mark Antony. She seduced him too, twice. This is how good she was. She needed another leader, all right? And she had no rapport with Augustus, but she had a little rapport with Mark Antony. Seduced him, still stays on the throne almost until the end of her rule, which eventually she commits suicide when Augustus comes over with the full might of Rome. But she used her strengths against their weaknesses, and their weaknesses was calmness, being out of their ordinary zone with soldiers and marching and stuff. She just brought them down to this nice, serene place that made it really easy. That's why you get a girl a drink on a date, let's calm it down, because if we both have a drink that knocks those nerves off, and we can talk a little more loosely, and we're both more comfortable. And that's what the sale is all about. That's what the seduction is all about. It's just you trying to bring someone down to a friendly level. Like you said, hey, how you doing? I'm this. You got a beautiful house. that is the way you do it. You talk to someone you're trying
You
to sell like a
compliment them,
friend.
dopamine goes to the brain.
Exactly. A real salesman, you will think he's like your really friend at the end. You'll have his number in your phone, and he has your number.
The best appointments is when you get a hug. I always get hugs, and you know they would come up to me and be like, "Man, I wish my kid was like you. I wish my son was like you. Can you tutor him? Can he work for you? Right? Like they would tell me that all the time. So
because you make an instant attachment with somebody, you become a friend. It don't take long to make friends. Just like in kindergarten, you made friends on the spot. And a great salesman can still do that when he's 30 or 100. It don't matter. You know, you can just come up, meet you, make you his friend, and make you feel attached.
I do think one of the most important things about anything in sales, for one, you definitely got to be aware of communication, body language, like you said already. You have some people who play off the emotional factor, like butter me up, build it up, build the value up. And then you have some people like, I know what I want, I know what I'm here to give it
logical,
to
yeah.
It's just straight logical. You got to read that. You got to be able to get to the point because you may talk somebody out of a deal.
That is true.
You build the value up so much, and they already know they just there to buy the stuff. They're not there to. They don't want any more information. They just want to buy. Take me to the papers. Let's get it done.
you know, I think that when you ask somebody to like, there's several rules in sales that's really important. I have a really good question for you, by the way. For example, when you ask for the order, you never speak. You like sometimes it's a silent game, right? The first one to speak always loses. You always drop down a quarterly, like I mentioned, right? But also, you also have like the assumptive close too, right? So I would I would do an appointment with customers, and I'd be like, all right, y'all figure out what you like. I would just be like, okay, is this option or this option better? You always give multiple options. They would pick one, or I would be like, hey, why don't y'all think about what option y'all want? Let me go to my car and get my lucky pen. And I would go to my car, get my lucky pen. I would come right back out, and I would give it to them, and I would be like, okay, sign here, debit or credit. You know, so it's like that assumptive close. You know, you're in sales a lot, man. I mean, you're selling these students. How do you think the sales, like, as a teacher, why do you think you need sales skills?
You definitely need sales skills because already nobody likes school.
Yeah.
Nobody likes to sit in the classroom and be like, why do we have to learn this? We're never going to use this ever in life.
Right. And it's hard for a kid to sit down 8 hours a day.
It's hard for
It's hard for me to sit down for 8 hours a day.
Like I tell people, honestly, I feel like if you want to be real with it, I think everybody has this ADD, ADHD disorder. Everybody has it, but some people just know how to control themselves more and not fall to those impulses to move around.
I don't think there is an ADHD.
I don't think so either.
I don't think it is either. That's
a whole different story.
That's a whole other story.
I don't think people are meant to sit down 8 fucking hours at a time.
Our bodies aren't made for that.
Right.
It's not made for that.
They're not even made to sit.
Right.
You know, it's literally like bad for your whole alignment and everything. You're not even supposed to sit down.
Right, because our attention span, we can definitely train it to be longer, but we still see other things moving. We just don't allow it to get our attention. But
Society
anyway,
of sheep. That's what you're.
I understand that a lot of these kids, they don't want to just sit there and they sit there for one and listen to what you got to say because it might not be interesting. It might not connect with them at that point in time at all. Even on the football field, when you're playing sports, they just want to get to the game.
Right.
They're not worried about the practice.
You have to sell them on the journey.
You sell them on a journey like, hey, like you saying, this is the value of it. The value of you having this, you can do this, you can do this, you can do that. The championship in football, the championship in academics, you can get all this money, you can get this big old job, you want to be the CEO, you want that car, you want that house, you want this, you want that.
But you got to
have all of it.
But you got to do
and
this.
then you give them the order.
We do the same thing with our sales team. It's so funny. It's so cool.
And then you give them all like, if you want that, you have to do this. And it sounds so great when it's coming from somebody who's been there. I think that's what's so receptive of it. It's hard to get that information. Like if that was your peer, your other student a student talking, and the student is telling this person this, they might hear it and understand it, but it might not have much of an impact. But now when they hear from somebody who's been there before, that's why some of your great speakers might be people who've been there before. They've been down in the dump before, and now they're all at the top.
And it's actually
one of Ray Lewis, Hall of Famer. His speeches are amazing.
Right. Actually, and it's so simple. Really, all life is you do this to get that. Now, it all depends on what you do. You know, if you do nothing, you get nothing. If you do something, you get something. If you do mediocre, you get mediocre. But if you outdo,
it's a simple equation. Whatever you input, that's what the output is going to be. You're always going to get an output. But whatever your input is going to determine your output.
Right.
End of the day.
So since you're a bodybuilder, if you input, since you're looking like a bodybuilder, goddamn it, you got the muscle. You come here with a goddamn white beat on, talking, I ain't a bodybuilder.
My shirt was sweating, man. What coming like that?
Oh, okay, all right. You wanted us to smell it. But you input trans fat or you input potato chips, you get a soggy potato chip body.
Agreed.
But you input red meat and you input creatine and protein and all these vitamins and nutrients and essential things that you need, then you get Brandon.
Agreed. Like just
specimen.
A specimen. Just to go out, I guess, my personal story off of what you asked me about with the kids and everything, about how to get them in that aspect. Is using it for what I'm doing now. Like I'm on a strict diet. Like I love food. Everybody loves food.
Yeah.
But for the goal that I'm trying to achieve, because my coach told me, my coach did exactly what you said. Now that you say it, it was like the value of it, everything, and then gave me the order. I was like, now that you said it, now it clicks in my head. Because I'm like, even though like the diet is very, very strict, it is fish and chicken. Fish, chicken, green beans, broccoli, protein shakes, rice cakes. Who eats rice cakes? You know? You eat rice cakes. But
I don't know what rice cake is.
You never had rice cakes?
I had to eat one. It's pretty
They're not bad.
They're actually pretty good.
Yeah.
But like I said, she built the value up for what I can do for this physique competition. Like you already have it. You already have this. Just a little bit more effort.
Painted
Just a little bit more
right?
Painted the picture. And then it's like, now this is what you got to do. It's going to suck, but that value that was just built that you believe in now, you can get it if you do this. Exactly.
Sacrifice breeds success. There is nothing worth obtaining without sacrifice. Period. I've never had nothing I've wanted in my life that I didn't have to sacrifice something for it, whether it be my time or my money or something. You sacrifice that's what you need to be looking for. What's the next thing I got to sacrifice to get what I want?
And being that we talked about leaders, man, sometimes sacrificing, like we said, it has to be that ego. That ego, that pride, you have to sacrifice. You have to let it go.
And but that's men. That's pretty hard, you know.
I do think it's hard. You know, and to really go back to what you were saying about like your students, we did that with Cutco a lot too, man. Imagine trying to sell. It's probably harder with school, but imagine trying to sell a 19-year-old girl or an 18-year-old guy or whoever it is, and why they should commit for 10 days to do nothing but Cutco. And how hard and the emotional roller coaster that they're going to go through, but they're going to be better people in the long run because they've never committed to anything. My favorite question is I would go up to people and I'm like, hey, can you give me a time where you really give it all you got? No, like seriously, Brandon. Give me a time where like you really gave it all you got.
I can answer that one.
And then people would really think, and I would be like, now...
Sex. Time where I really give it all I got.
Anyway,
come on, you guys are thinking it.
We got away from it.
You guys are thinking it.
Yeah.
On,
so anyway, I would
They must
have like a
lousy
personal
sex.
consultation with my representative, and we had this thing called a Fast Start program where they would have to do 10 days of like, you know, most people try to do $10,000 in sales, and they would make $2,000 in income the first 10 days on the job. And I love this. This is what I think like made me a great manager. I would go up to them and I'd be like, I thank them for being here. I thank them for the time. I would show them the pictures of all my people that have done it before, and I'd be like, you know what everybody has in common? And they'd be like, what, like this meeting right now? They all had this meeting with me.
Damn, that's really good stuff, man.
And they would be like, they would kind of sit up a little bit straighter, and I'd be like, I would dig in with their family, and I'd be like, hey, Brandon, give me a time in your life where you gave it all you got, and you ended up hitting your goal, but you failed at the same time throughout the process. You know, for me, for example, you know, we were playing Hoover, and we were playing Hoover. They were the #1 team in the nation.
Yep.
And we were playing on MTV. It was a show called Two-A-Days.
Yep.
And this is what happened. They came out. They had their home crowd. We went down 14-0. But there was that one game-changing moment, Brandon, where our coach had the courage, a lot like the Saints, to have an onside kick. We got the ball. We scored 28 unanswered points because of that one game-changing opportunity. So I want you to answer this question for me. Give me a time in your life where you were down, you were behind, you had no idea, you didn't even believe that you could hit your goal. But through hard work, through dedication, through doubt, through everything, you were able to hit it. And then those people would answer. And then whenever they sometimes there's like, they gave me like a shadow answer. I'm like, no, tell me more. Go deeper, go deeper, go deeper. Until these kids would fucking cry. I'm talking about man-to-man, big-ass athletes, crying at my desk. And I'm like, I would look at him in their eyes and I'll say, you're already a champion, brother. You just don't know it yet. And by committing for these next 10 days, imagine, right, what your life is going to be like. When you go through times through a divorce, when you go through times through this, when somebody dies, and you know that you have to go through, you know, all the stuff that you went through at this time can help you towards that situation.
Right.
And you tie them into a fucking picture so big, so much bigger than themselves. And because what happens is in sales, or even like in school, is people get focused on the number. And when you focus on the result, when you're far away, you always fail. You can never focus on the result. So what I would do is I would put their outcome right there, but they would sign a contract, right? And the contract was completely, they would sign, and underneath it was commit to the actions. It was never the result. It was the actions that somebody had to do in order to achieve their goal.
Right.
And by that, I had more people do $10,000 their first 10 days on the job than anybody in the company.
That's amazing.
You make me want to get a job for Cutco. You sell that place really well, man. Call Cutco out.
Listen, sales is the best. I think it's the best universal tool you can have. You can, you know, obviously, you know, message us or whatever. Obviously, we all do sales here. It's as you can see, this is a topic that I am extremely like just passionate about.
Yes.
He's sweating a little bit over here.
Yeah, man, it's my jam. So yeah, no, thank you all for listening. And if y'all have any questions, hit us up.
Any last comments on sales, man?
No last comments, man. Dave said it all, man. The ATO, man, build the value up. Give them that order last. You got to build the value up for your customers to create that seduction like Jay was talking about.
Seduction.
You got to make it attractive, draw them in, compliment them, sell yourself. There's all points that has been said.
Sell yourself, man. That's one of my favorite things.
Sell yourself, but also sell the value, but also add them into everything.
Think how many
Never
days you
ask
go
for
to
the
work.
order until the value's at its highest, baby.
Think how many
Never.
days you go to work and you act like you like the place, or you like your employees, or like you enjoy doing what your boss tells you to do. You're already a good salesman. You're just a good salesman for your job, but you could be a good salesman for yourself, and then you could make your own money and not have anyone above you, anyone over you. Because one thing that is when you work for somebody is you're counting on someone else not to make mistakes. And then you have nothing to give to your children. You can't give them somebody else's business wherever you're working at, but if you owned your own, you could do it.
Take the chance.
Take the chance, baby. Take the chance. And like Dave said yesterday, man, if you gotta assume that the value is there, don't assume it should be guaranteed. You should already know.
Yep.
If you assume you gotta fart you, but it's really a poo. Ain't that what you said? Something
When
like
you
that.
assume, you lose, baby.
When you assume, you lose.
Yeah.